So in light of the last 3 games, both in terms of results and performance level, should Manchester United be seriously considering sacking Ruben Amorim at this point in the season? Well, I'd have to say I'm not sure. I'd probably say no at this point, simply because I don't think we're bad enough to the point where we can risk that transition period, where we sack Amorim and bring in another manager, or have to wait to bring in that new manager and have an interim for a period of time. I think at this point, I do still think we could get top 5 with Amorim as the head coach. But my issue is still the one that has persisted for the last pretty much half a year, because I just don't think going into next season that Amorim tactically and in terms of player development is the level needed to first sustain a serious title challenge and then go on to actually win the league. And so in this video I'm going to be explaining why this is my opinion, answering these 3 questions specifically. First of all, how good are Manchester United under Ruben Amorim at this point in time? And what specifically are the tactical issues that we faced in the last 3 games that may have exposed that he's not actually as tactically flexible as we had initially thought after that initial tactical change at the start of the season? And thirdly, why do I say that I would be heavily considering replacing him at the end of the season, and who would be the top candidates in my mind to replace him? Well, before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new season Manchester United jerseys, home, away, and alternative shirts, as well as a unique collection of retro jerseys as well, such as this 01-02 Manchester United home shirt with Veron 4 on the back, as well as this Zinedine Zidane Real Madrid shirt from the same season as well. If you spend over $50, you can also get free shipping depending on where you live, and if you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll also get a discount as well. So I'll leave that linked in the description and in the comment section below. So let's start off with the first question. How good are Manchester United under Ruben Amorim currently? Well, honestly, I think we could be anywhere from maybe 4th all the way down to 13th or 14th. Because honestly, if you look at the Premier League at the moment, it is quite a unique season in comparison to past seasons, in the sense that other than probably Arsenal and Manchester City, and maybe also Chelsea as well, from about 4th to maybe even 15th, all of the sides seem pretty equal in terms of their actual performance level, consistently week to week, and in terms of player quality in most cases, but definitely in terms of overall performance level from that team and the tactical setup that we see from the head coaches. Because the thing is, even if you compare Manchester United's squad to say a Bournemouth or Crystal Palace, and point out that Manchester United do have the better individual players within the squad, I think when you then compare the head coaches in terms of the system that they use with their specific set of players, I think Glasner and Iraola do make up that gap. And so when you compare Manchester United with the likes of Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, and even other teams like Brighton as well, I think you have to say that it's pretty much equal at this point in the season. And you can't really call it either way as to whether Manchester United are going to be finishing above those sides or whether they're going to be below them. And so having that opinion, it becomes pretty clear to me that Amorim can't be the man for Manchester United going forward, because United's performance level and results as a whole are always going to be limited to the individual ability within the squad, because unlike Glasner at Palace or Iraola at Bournemouth, I just don't think Amorim has the ability to get the squad playing to a level that is above the sum of their parts. Whereas if you look at Glasner and Iraola and the player quality that they have, you would clearly say that they're performing as a team to a higher level than the sum of their parts and in results as well. And so Amorim, I do think, is restricted by the individual player quality, and so it's going to take United a lot of time in order to make up the gap from Arsenal and Manchester City. And even then, you're not going to be able to win the title with a manager who isn't able to develop players beyond the seeding that they first had. I mean, look at Pep Guardiola with Bernardo Silva, for example, or even what Arteta's doing with the likes of Yuri Timber, Calafiori, Hincapié, Mikel Merino, Eze, etc, etc. I just don't see Amorim being able to improve players like maybe Dalot or Ahmad or even Mbeumo and Cunha to the level needed to actually compete for a Premier League title. And so unless there's a radical change tactically from Amorim, but not just tactically, also in terms of his decision making and his decisiveness within matches, I think there are going to be better managers available. However, the question is about replacing Amorim now, and I think if you look at the market, there aren't too many names that stand out as obvious upgrades. Even if you look at Oli as an interim, or maybe even someone like Xavi, I don't think you'd say 100% that they come in and improve Manchester United from where Amorim currently has United, and that is probably around 5th or even 6th place. And so it may be better to keep Amorim just for this season in terms of continuity, and then do what we should have done at the end of Ten Hag's first season, which is upgrade upon what was already a pretty good season. Because even from the start of the season, United's only real objective this campaign is to get Champions League qualification. However, even if Amorim does succeed in attaining this, that doesn't mean that he's a man to push United forward. But that now leads me on to the tactical reasoning behind my assessment as to why Amorim has kind of imposed a ceiling upon this squad. And as I've said during recent analysis of games against Sunderland and Liverpool, for example, from a tactical point of view, the test for Amorim was always going to be against sides that sit deep and compact, using a setup that is designed to restrict space in front of and in behind their defensive line, and leaving very little space in the middle third for quick transitional attacks. And this is why United's performance level and results have been so much better against what you would say are the better sides, certainly in terms of league position. Because if you look at Brighton, Liverpool and even Sunderland as well, because they are front foot offensive teams, at least in comparison to the likes of Crystal Palace and definitely when compared to West Ham and Everton, this does mean that they are going to leave a greater amount of space when they do lose the ball in possession, simply by having players wider and in more advanced positions compared with David Moyes in Everton and Nuno at West Ham. And it's this deep defensive setups which exposed Amorim's possession system in a way that teams like Brighton and Liverpool weren't able to do. Because if you look at the players that United have, Mbeumo and Cunha, they definitely thrive more in quick transitional attacks when they're receiving the ball after a turnover in the middle third, where the space is there for Cunha to receive the ball and drive into, and space in behind the back line for Mbeumo to break into. And if you look at Mbeumo's performance level in particular, you can definitely see why I said at the start of the summer that Mbeumo was a player who was going to be significantly better in quick transitional attacks compared with positional attacks. And that's because Amorim's possession system is far too reliant on quick transitional attacks in order to progress the ball into the final third, as against these deeper defensive units, where the majority of the game is being played in the middle third during United's settled possession phase, the system is just far too positionally rigid and easy for the opposition to man-to-man press or cut off passing lanes into key players via the positioning of their midfield and forward lines, and that's exactly what we saw against both Everton and West Ham. And this tactical issue is clear by simply looking at Mbeumo's performance level against the lesser sides such as Everton and West Ham compared against the better sides such as Brighton and Liverpool. And that's because he doesn't have that space to run into in behind the back line, there aren't as many quick transitional attacks, and he's forced to play in central areas between the lines where, due to the highly structured aspects of Amorim's possession system, he's most of the time receiving the ball with his back to goal, under pressure immediately being forced away from goal, which is not where you want Mbeumo receiving the ball. And this is why I think Amorim has to start to incorporate more relationist aspects into his possession system, giving each individual player greater freedom to drift around and stray from their initial positions, as we very rarely see unique identity in terms of player combinations. It's all very structured, and therefore is very predictable, which makes it easy for the opposition to defend against. But this is exacerbated by probably an even bigger issue, which is Amorim's individual decision making. I mean, we saw it against Everton. Keeping two wing-backs in Mazraoui and Dorgu on for 35 minutes of the first half after Idrissa Gueye got sent off is a perfect example of why I don't think Amorim is good enough to take United forward next season. But that was just one of many mistakes throughout the entire game, with the same pattern being Amorim's indecisiveness and unwillingness to even move away from the positional shape. I mean, it seems like he's never going to move to any sort of back four system where you'd have just two players sitting back rather than the three in the back line, even against 10 men against Everton at home when they've had a player sent off in the 15th minute. And for me, that is such a big red flag on its own that it stops Amorim being regarded as an elite level manager, because you can't be an elite level manager and be that indecisive in game but also that stubborn and tactically inflexible. I just don't see it being feasible long term at all. And so I think the last three games have evened out the expectations for this season that Amorim is not really capable of taking United to that next level and potentially going above and beyond the sum of the parts of this United squad. And so there's always going to be that limitation, and so I just don't see how he's a manager to win us a Premier League, especially when my top candidates such as De Zerbi, Nagelsmann, Antonio Conte, amongst others, with young managers like Iraola, Farioli and even Cesc Fabregas also being managers that I would be considering depending on how they do from now till the end of the season. I just think in comparison to Ruben Amorim, if you compare him to my top three of Nagelsmann, De Zerbi and Conte, I just don't see how you can think that Amorim is a better manager for United to win the league than any of those three. So let me know if you agree with this in the comment section below. And if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code ATLANTIS at checkout for a discount. I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below. And if you want to check out some of my other videos, I'll leave a playlist linked on the end screen now as well.